In this video, I'm going to share with you how you can acquire property from retiring landlords, sometimes using very little of your own money and sometimes entire portfolios in one go. One deal could be enough to completely replace your income. So my name's Simon Zutshi. I've been investing in property for the last 30 years and teaching people like you how to be successful investors for 22 years. And I can tell you right now in 2025, I've never seen as many landlords retiring and leaving the property market. Now look, you've always got some people entering the market and some people leaving the market. It's just right now, because of what's going on, there are more and more people leaving. So in this video, I'm going to explain why you should be working with retiring landlords. I'm going to talk about where you find these retiring landlords, and very often it's off market, they're not on the market for sale, which is great because you don't have lots of competition. And I'm going to talk about what do you actually do with these retiring landlords. So first of all, let's start with why should you be dealing with retiring landlords? Most landlords have not really kept the rents on their properties as high as they should. And the reason is, if you've got a really good tenant in the property, you kind of maybe think, well, I don't want to rock the boat, I don't want to put the rent up too much, I don't want to leave because then I have some void periods, I might need to spend some money doing the property up. So very often we keep good tenants in the property for sometimes many, many years at a time. What this means is those properties are not in top condition and the landlords are not charging the high rent they could be achieving from the property if they re-rented it right now. So what this means is we can pick up properties from landlords where we can very easily, with a light cosmetic refurb, improve the standard of the accommodation and also improve the amount of rent we can get from that property. So we can take the exact same property and we can often make it far more profitable than the existing landlord. And if they're a long-term landlord, there's a good chance they've got the property in their own name. They're going to be hit by Section 24, which is where if you own property in your own name and you have a mortgage and you're a high-rate taxpayer, you pay a lot of extra tax on that property. This means you can pick up a property that's not really working for that landlord. You'd buy it in a company structure, which is the best way to move forward for most people. And by increasing the rents and the value, suddenly you're going to have a much more profitable deal than them. So that's the first reason we can pick up these properties. Secondly, with retiring landlords, they often have multiple properties. When you find a landlord, you can find out what the problem is, give them a great solution. You might not get just one property, you might get a whole portfolio of deals, and that might be enough to replace your income with one deal with one landlord. So it takes a bit of time and effort to find them and to speak to them, but one great deal can absolutely make it all worthwhile. The next reason is landlords are often a bit more commercially minded than a normal homeowner. They might have done creative finance in the past, which means they understand it. And importantly, landlords don't necessarily need the money from the sale of that property. They just don't want the properties anymore. They may be selling them over a period of time. They might have money in the bank from past sales, which means when they sell this property or properties, they might already have the money to pay the capital gains tax they need to pay on the profit they've made. So they may not need the money. And that's really important if you want to do creative finance strategies such as purchase lease options. A purchase lease option is where you control a property, you don't actually own it. That means you don't need to put in a big 25% deposit, you don't need to get a mortgage, but you can benefit from the cash flow and also the potential capital growth. Because basically you agree to buy a property at today's price, but sometime in the future. And the owner has to sell to you as long as you've done things properly through solicitors. They can't wriggle out of it. So it means you have exclusivity to buy this property. So not only can you make cash flow, you can benefit from potential capital growth on a property you don't even own. And if the value of that property has gone up enough, many of my students have been doing this over the last 15 years, they've been able to buy properties using the equity in the property rather than having to put a deposit in when they actually come to buy. But you can only really do these strategies where the owner doesn't need the money right now, and landlords are one of the biggest groups where they don't need the cash. So these are some of the reasons why we should be working with retiring landlords. So where do we actually find these people? Well, occasionally landlords will go to estate agents to sell their properties. But if you think about it, you might think, wow, an agent's going to be really happy about that. Well, no, they're not, because it's a lot of work for them to look around all the properties, to assess the value, to put them on the market. it's unlikely they're going to find someone to buy all of them. They have to sell individual properties, and it's a lot of work and hassle for them. So for this reason, landlords don't actually go to agents. And in fact, if we can find those landlords before they go to the agents, we can save the landlords having to pay the estate agency fees, which are further discounts you can get off the purchase price. So the best 3 ways of finding landlords are as follows. First of all, speak to your local letting agents. If the landlord is using a letting agent to manage the properties and the landlord thinks about selling the property, the first person they're going to speak to is their current letting agent, because they want to talk about, what do I need to do? Do I need to get rid of the tenants? How do I go about it? Now, most letting agents are really going to panic when a landlord says, I want to sell all my properties, because they're thinking about the loss of income they're going to have as a result of not managing those properties anymore. Now, some letting agents, they are attached to estate agents and they can help the landlord sell, but the majority of letting agents, they just do lettings. And if that landlord sells that property, there's a good chance that whoever buys it may not use that letting agency. Maybe they've got their own letting agent, maybe they do it themselves, or maybe they're not even going to be a landlord, they're going to live in the property. So we can help that letting agent by saying, look, if you've got any landlords who are thinking about selling up, if you give the deal to us, not only will we pay you a finder's fee, which might be £500, maybe £1,000 depending on the deal, but also we'll leave the property with you fully managed for at least the next year. So at least they're going to gain more revenue by working with us rather than working with someone else. So make it in the interest of the letting agent for them to let us know when they've got landlords who want to sell. The next best way of finding landlords is by doing landlord letters. This is where we get the list of all the HMO registered landlords from the local council, and we send them letters, not just one, but a campaign of letters over time saying, hey, would you be interested in selling your property or renting it for a guaranteed rent? Now, this is a numbers game. The vast majority of landlords are going to be very happy with their properties. But we're looking for maybe the 5% who are not happy. Maybe they're thinking about retiring. Maybe they are a tired landlord. Maybe they've had bad tenants. They've had bad letting agents. They've had void periods. They're trying to manage remotely. They're just not doing a very good job. Maybe they've inherited the property portfolio. They've never had to manage it before and they really don't know what they should be doing. This is a headache. They just want to get rid of these properties. So through writing to the HMO registered landlords, we can access these people even before they go on the market. Now, you might be sitting there thinking, well, I'm not sure if I really want HMO properties. And obviously, the HMO landlords are going to have HMOs, but because HMO is a more advanced strategy, HMO is house of multiple occupation, by the way, where you rent out the individual rooms, a very profitable strategy. Because they've got those kind of properties, that's probably not their only property. They might have single properties, they might have blocks of flats, pieces of land, but they might have property generally they don't want anymore, and we can find them before they go on the market by speaking to those people direct, by sending letters to their home address. And the third way of finding landlords who might want to sell some or all of their properties is by going to property networking events. I run the Property Investors Network. It's the largest and longest running network of meetings all around the UK, currently 45 plus meetings all over the country every month, and even some in the Netherlands. And we get sometimes experienced landlords who come to those events wanting to get rid of those properties, looking to sell to people who might want to get on the property investment ladder. So going to network meetings and telling everyone what you're looking for is a great way to find deals. So to summarize, the 3 best ways to find off-market deals from landlords is going to letting agents, sending letters to the HMO register, and also going to property networking events. Now, once we've found these landlords, what do we actually do? Well, first of all, we want to sit down with them and understand what are they trying to achieve. Why do they want to get rid of their properties? And there could be all sorts of reasons. They've got to a certain age, they want to retire. Very often, I'm speaking to landlords who are saying, well, I've got this portfolio and I kind of thought my kids want to take it over, but they're just not interested. And so very often people thought they were going to pass on a legacy and that doesn't happen. So they're just going to cash it in. And after all, property prices have done really well over the last 20, 30 years. Often they're sitting on a huge amount of equity. They'll have to pay tax on that, but they can have a big pile of money and retire on that money. Now, they don't always need that money. So when I'm establishing the rapport with a landlord, I'll find out why are they selling, and I'll ask in a kind of a cheeky way, so if you don't mind me asking, what are you going to do with the money? And sometimes they want to pay down some other debt, but very often they're going to leave that money in the bank. And they'll leave it in the bank, they're not going to be getting a great return. So I just lodged that bit of information in my head because maybe there's some creative finance I can use, things like purchase lease options or vendor finance, which is where with an option, I don't actually buy the property, or with vendor finance, I do buy it, but the seller helps me fund the purchase. And they do that because they get the price they want, it gets the property out of their hassle, out of their responsibility, and also they make more money doing that than just leaving it in the bank because I'll pay them interest on the money they left in the deal. So we understand what do they want to achieve, why are they selling, what are they going to do with the money, and then we look at their portfolio. Now, the challenge with buying a portfolio is that within any portfolio there might be some really good properties and there might be some properties that are not so good. And you kind of got to take the good with the bad. You need to analyze each property individually. You want to work out, okay, what's the current cash flow from this property? How much profit do I make each month after all the expenses? And also, if I was going to buy this property, what would the return on investment be? Just because a property is rented at the moment, maybe the rents haven't been raised and we can lift the rent a bit more, we can cosmetically improve the property and make it a much better cash flowing property. But I like to assess what is it right now or what do I think I can get it to, and I always base my numbers on the current rental income just to make sure I'm being very conservative. So we look at each of the properties in the portfolio and we can either buy the whole thing or maybe we control it on an option. You don't need to necessarily buy all of the properties yourself. There might be certain ones you think, yeah, that's perfect, it fits into my strategy, my portfolio. There might be other properties within their portfolio that you don't really want. You could potentially do an assisted sale where you're selling them to other investors who have slightly different investing criteria from you, and actually it means you don't have to buy them, but the benefit for the landlord's got one point of contact. So you agree to deal with all of their properties, some of which you're going to buy, some of which you're going to pass on to other people. And I'll be really open and honest with them about that. Explain, look, I'm not going to buy all of them myself, but I could be one point of contact. I'm going to help you get rid of them. And by the way, I'm not going to charge you any estate agency fees. Now, if you are selling deals to other people, you need to become a compliant deal sourcer. And I've got other videos on this YouTube channel all about that. Go and look for those. But if you're just doing deals where you're buying for yourself or you're joint venturing with other people, there's no compliance or regulation required. But just be aware, if you are selling deals on, really you should be a compliant deal sourcer. So in this video, we've talked about why you should be working with retiring landlords. There are lots of them now who want to get out of the game. And right now, as we record this in 2025, it's a buyer's market. That means there are more people selling than there are people buying. And many investors are sitting back, waiting to see what happens with the Renters' Rights Bill. They're waiting to see what happens with UK interest rates, waiting for the perfect time to get in. What that means is right now there is not much competition for you. So we absolutely should be working with these landlords. We talked about the 3 best places to find those landlords, which is going to letting agents, doing landlord letters and networking events. And we talked about what to actually do, to sit down with them, to build the rapport, build the connection, find out what they want to achieve, why they want to do it. And then we look at each of the properties in turn, we do an analysis on each one and work out on the overall portfolio, what do we want to do. It takes more time and effort for a portfolio, and I would highly recommend, rather than investing all your time in one big deal that could be the life-changing deal, make sure you've got a pipeline of deals. Different deals at different stages. There's some you're advertising for, some you're looking at, some you're making offers on, some you're following up, some you're agreeing deals, some you're progressing to legals, some you're tenanting. If you have a pipeline of deals, it means if a deal falls over, particularly a big one, like a portfolio, you're not suddenly back to square one and it'll take you months to get the next deal lined up. Always have this pipeline of deals. That's going to make you a far more successful investor. So I do hope you've enjoyed watching this video. Come and comment below. What do you think about working with landlords? Is this something that you want to be doing yourself? I highly recommend you give it a try. If you like the video, please like it. It will help the algorithm. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel and hit the bell icon to make sure you get notified anytime a new video comes out. Now, if you're thinking about, okay, how do I find these network meetings? I'd highly recommend you go and check out the Property Investors Network. I'm going to put a link below this video, but basically you can go to the website, which is www.pinmeeting.co.uk. It lists all of the meetings around the UK and the meetings we have in the Netherlands as well. You can check the one closest to you, check the date and time. They're normally in the evening, so it's after work for most people. And it's a great opportunity for you to come and meet other like-minded people, to be inspired by what other people are achieving, to learn some of the latest strategies, and also build your personal network. Your network is your net worth. The more people you know in property, the more successful you will be, because those are people and contacts you can tap into, get some help and assistance when you need it. So it's a massive benefit for you to be going regularly to a local property investor network and become a known face. You want people there to know you, to like you, to trust you, to understand what you're looking for, so when opportunities come up, you're the person they come to. But it all starts with you going and booking in your local PIN meeting. If you've been before, you know how good they are. If you've not been before, oh my God, what are you waiting for? You can go to pinmeeting.co.uk, find your local meeting, and if you've never been before, where it goes to the payment section, go to where it says pay with a voucher code, put in the word YouTube as a voucher code and your details. It will bypass the payment page for your very first time, and you can go to your first PIN meeting as our guest. I'd really encourage you to come and book your next meeting right now. Come and see for yourself what you've been missing out on. Until next time, I encourage you always to invest in knowledge, invest with skill.